going to call this meeting to order. My name is Joe McGiverin. I'm the City Councilor at Large, Chair of the Finance Committee. To my left is Peter Tallman, City Councilor at Large, a member. And to my right, Mike Sullivan, City Councilor at Large, a member. Councilor Leahy and Councilor McGee should be joining us quickly with a aggressive agenda. We're going to dive right into it and get as much done as we can in a timely fashion. Although I note there is no World Series game tonight, so there's no one rushing.
Yeah. That's late.
Dale, I wasn't going to say that. We'll get everybody out in time for the halftime.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
He's a Giants fan, so.
We're going to move fast. All right, members of the committee, item number 1. We could take it off the table for discussion.
Motion to take
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This is from the building department. I spoke to Mr. Cody today. He does have a family commitment. I actually excused him. If I can answer any questions, I think we're okay. We've been acting on these transfers. As we know, both the electrical inspector left the position this year and the plumbing inspector left the position this year. The money's being transferred here from plumbing inspector inspections, plumbing gas, into sick leave buyback and vacation buyback is to meet a contractual obligation in the electrical inspector's buyback for what is the city owes the individual. Again, this is part of what the contract is about. The total would be $4,591.32. Chair will entertain a motion or any questions.
Make a motion to approve the transfers.
Motion made second to approve the transfers with a recommendation to the City Council next Wednesday. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. We have with us Sergeant Hart from the Police Department to answer questions on the next 4 items. I think we should do them one at a time. John, if you want to come in. Item number 2, introduced by myself under Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, the City Council hereby accept the provisions of the Comprehensive Opioid Program grant authorizes the establishment of a fund and or other method appropriate for the accounting of the receipts and expenditures of all resources associated with the grant. This was signed by the mayor, submitted to the City Council, referred to this committee for the purpose of discussion. Chair may take a motion to take off the table for that.
Motion to take off the table.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? John, thank you for being here this evening. If you could just run us through this grant, and of course, are there any matching funds?
Sure. Okay. Just to start off, all of these grants that we're going to be discussing today have no matching funds for them.
Thank you.
This one in particular, it's a 2-year grant. What it is basically narcotics intervention officer is going to be teamed up with a recovery coach from Behavioral Health Network. Our partners are the University of Massachusetts, who's going to be supplying a researcher and a scientist researcher to do a lot of data for the opioid program here. And we're also going to have a RUTA mentoring program, as well as other service providers for this grant.
And I think you said it, but and I know we have it. The total grant is?
The total amount is for $448,025.
Any questions from the committee? Councilor Tallman.
Yes, Sergeant Hart, is this worked out of through the your department, the police department? The grant?
Yes, it is.
And so you basically worked the money out through the 2-year program with the researcher from UMass?
Yes, with all the partners. The police department is the programmatic and financial manager of the grant.
I mean, when does the grant start?
October 1st.
Thank you.
John, is it all salary that we'll be using it for?
No, some of it, we have 2 trainings that are going to be conducted in Washington, D.C., so some of that money is slotted for those trainings for all the partner members.
And how many police employees will we be sending to D.C.?
1.
And I'm sorry, I think you said it, but did the chief name the lead person from the oil PD?
What do you mean lead?
Is there one person that's going to be in charge, or one person that's going to be doing the trainings and going to DC?
No, what it is the recovery coach, and then probably the program coordinator, which will be myself, may go to the training, but basically that's who will be managing the whole project.
We also have joining us our Ward 3 City Councilor Dave Bartley. Is there any further discussion? Dave, we're on item number 2. Chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve accept the grant, the Comprehensive Opioid Program grant.
If there's no further discussion, the motion is to accept the grant. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. Joining us is City Councilor at Large, Jim Leahy, also a member of the committee. Item number 3, introduced by myself, is under Mass General Laws 44, Section 53A, the city accepts the fiscal year 2018 Burn Memorial Justice Assistance Grant and authorizes the establishment of a fund and or other method appropriate for the counting of the receipts and expenditures. Motion to take off the table for discussion.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. John, could you run us through this one?
Okay, this is the Burn JAG Award. The total amount is for $35,101. It's primarily an equipment grant, and what we're planning to purchase are tasers through this grant, and also a mobile forensic video imaging equipment, which our detectives will be able to bring on scene and in real time to recover some videos from, convenience stores or other areas that have surveillance videos, and we'll be able to download that in this software and kind of clear up any patchy or foggy images and get those out to the troops.
And the JAG grant is for $35,101 this year?
Yes, it is.
And how many tasers, and what would you be spending on tasers?
Right
estimated?
now, we're looking at possibly getting 30 tasers. However, they came out with a new taser that we're looking at now, and we're talking about possibly switching to that new taser. So the amount varies right now. But what we have budgeted for the old taser is approximately 30.
And what would the cost be if it were the 30 tasers?
Approximately $20,000.
How does a taser last?
They come with a 5-year warranty.
Any other questions from the committee? Councilor Sullivan?
Yeah, quick one. Were tasers in the budget, in this year's fiscal budget?
No, they were not.
They weren't? Okay.
In the video, forensic video imaging would be taken to crime scenes and used by detectives, individual, that would be obviously trained how to do it.
Right.
What's the cost of one of those?
That's probably the 15,000 balance.
Is that a competitive bid, or do you go through Boston?
It's really a sole source because the software and stuff that we use now has to be compatible with this type of imaging machine. So, and that includes some of the training too for the detectives to go.
Any other questions from the committee, or Councilor Leahy, or Councilor Bartley? Councilor Leahy.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to be supporting this. As you know, I've been fighting hard a long time for the police department to have tasers. I butted heads with former Chief Scott. He was opposed to them. Then when Chief Neiswanger came in, we had meetings and we discussed it, and he thought it was a good idea. Back before we had tasers, if an officer used the mace, he now has to bring that person to the hospital, and so the officer is now tied up throughout the night as well. And God forbid if the mace got into the officer's eyes, which happened quite a bit as well. 9 out of 10 times, a person knows that a police officer is not going to shoot them, but they know that they will tase them. And so when a red light gets put onto your chest, they're more apt to stop what they're doing. And so I'm in favor of this. I fought hard for it a long time ago, and I'll continue supporting it. Thank you.
Our City Council President and member of the committee, Ward 7 Councilor Todd McGee, has joined us. Is there any other questions from anyone? Todd, we're on item number 3, the Byrne Memorial Justice, the JAG grant.
Make a motion, it's approved.
Motion made second to approve, recommend to the full City Council for next Wednesday's meeting. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Item number 5. Four, sorry. Introduced by myself, again, under Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, the city hereby accepts the provisions of the End Abuse in Later Life grant, authorizing the establishment of a fund and other appropriate accounting and receipts for the receipts and expenditures of the said grant. Motion to take off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. John, if you can run us through this one?
Okay, sure. This is a 3-year grant. It's an enhanced training grant with some outreach services applied to it. The first year is strictly for planning and training, where members or partners of our program, which consists of the Attorney General's Office, West Mass Elder Care, Women Companeras, and some local judges, will be going down to DC for several trainings on abuse in later life. And we'll be conducting some training as well for the law enforcement and DA's office and judges about elder abuse.
And the total grant is?
$398,205.
Any salaries for the police department coming out of this?
Yes, some salaries. Again, I'll be doing a lot of the programmatic and reporting, as well as our Elder Affairs Officer. There'll also be salaries for our partners with West Mass Elder Care and Women Companeras.
And is the city we funnel through it, or we are responsible for those?
Yes, we're the fiduciary responsibilities of that and programmatic as well.
Is there anything else that comes with the, if, Women's Shelter, Western Mass Elders, if you're paying for individuals, to come under the grant, they're not considered city employees, correct?
Correct, no.
And there's no benefits or nothing else that goes
No,
with it?
they're I believe, consultants under this.
Most important, we're not responsible for any unemployment insurance at the end of the grant.
Negative.
And I know the auditor's listening back there, and I know he's shaking his head. Joe and John better be right. I think we are, but that's something we always have to be mindful of. Are there any other questions, any other discussion? Councilor Leahy.
Yeah, so would any of the salaries be going to either Thomas or Patrick Leahy?
No.
Oh, so I can vote on it. Okay. I make a motion to approve it then.
If I could just ask, I wanted to mix it up a little bit, but the second and third year, what happens? Everybody gets trained and?
Yes, we'll start conducting training, and that's where the outreach portion with our Elder Affairs Officer will be teaming up with a woman victim advocate, going out doing trainings to all the elderly high-rises and setting up some trainings at the senior center.
Councilor Bartley?
John, who's our Elder Affairs Officer?
Officer Romero.
How long has he been in that position?
Just recently, I believe, maybe a month.
Do we have an Elder Affairs Officer before Officer Romero?
Several years ago.
Oh, yeah? Okay. And just as far as the salaries go, John, how does that work now? It's gonna, what's that gonna do? Is it gonna supplement salaries or increase salaries, or how does that work?
No, it'll pay for that elder affairs officer's salary.
Oh, okay, so it'll pay Officer O'Merrill's whole salary
Yes,
for that whole period, John?
yes.
Oh, so it makes sense. Okay, so part of the grant must have been to have an elder affairs officer. That had to be.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Now, where's Officer Romero been posted, if you will, since he's, before this?
His prior post, he used to be a school resource officer.
Okay. All right, so is somebody's replacing him now as a school resource officer?
Yes.
All right, and who might that be?
Juan Cruz, Officer Cruz.
You?
Any other discussion? Any other questions?
Make motion to approve.
Second to approve it, Councilor McGee?
But when the 3 years ends, what happens after that, would be my question.
There's no requirements or no match that they must maintain that position at all.
So, to be clear on Councilor Bartley, it's gonna cover the salary for 3 years?
2 years.
So 2 years, third year what?
The first year is all training
First year's all training, the
and
salary
planning.
is paid for by the city? And
Yes.
the next 2 years, they're paying for it?
Correct,
And then after that, we hope to get another grant to keep going?
correct.
Okay. But if it ends, we don't,
We're not obligated, right.
But if a position is backfilled, all right, because the elder's officer leaves a position and a position is open, even a patrolman, we would be mindful after 2 years that we have to pay for that. I know there's attrition, I know there are people who will be leaving,
Right.
but
Right, you can't supplant.
just something to keep in mind. You know, it's, I mean, it should be able to, as long as you plan for a year in advance, you should be okay. Anything else?
Yeah, Joe?
Councilor Bartley?
Yeah, John, I don't want to say Officer Romero's salary on the microphone. Can I just get an email on that, please?
Sure, absolutely.
I know it's public record. I understand it's public record, but I just don't want to. You know, my salary is $10,000. I want that known. So, well, Councilor McGee's is 11,000. But I just, if I could just get an email on that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Anything else? Motion on the floor then is to adopt and recommend to the full city council for next Wednesday's meeting. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Item number 5, again, Mass General Laws 44, Section 53A, the city council accepts the provisions of the fiscal 2018 Innovations in Reentry Grant and authorizes the establishment of fund and other method appropriate for the accounting of the receipts, expenditures of said grant. Motion to take off the table. All those in favor? Any opposed? John?
Okay, so this grant is a little more complex. What it is, it's a reentry grant for the amount of $979,057. It's a 3-year grant. The police department is going to be getting a very small portion, approximately $30,000 a year for this, for a narcotics gang detective. The bulk of the money is going to be going to our other partners, which happen to be the Hampden County Sheriff's Department, ROCA, and the District Attorney's Office. And what this grant is, it's focused on the high-risk youth, age 18 to 24, who have had previous gun or current gun charges, and those who are at high risk of reoffending and entering jail again. And this program is basically designed for those youth who are incarcerated in the jail to get services through ROCA, as well as education to try and get them their eyes set and some possibilities for job opportunities when they re-enter the city. What this does, it'll pay for positions mainly in the Sheriff's Department through a reentry coordinator, a counselor in the jail, and much of the the funding is gonna be going to ROCA, who will be providing all that funding and the resources, behind the walls.
Now, I said it a couple of grants ago, and I'm gonna say it this time a little bit different. We're essentially a third-party funnel through for this for ROCA.
Or they're the third party. We're the main,
Well, we're not, John, because you know, and I think Bellamy knows, I'm not gonna mention the program, the problems we had with the last time we did this, and the accounting of the dollars and the way they were being used
Right.
by the program, that ROCA is actually in the same building and taking over most of what the prior program was doing. Who's gonna be the watchdog over ROCA
so,
with these funds?
yeah, we are, the police department. We're gonna be issuing subcontracts to each of those partners. So there'll be a MOU and a subcontract outlining all the,
But if, you know, they say they are servicing X amount of individuals who qualify for this reentry type of, which is, by the way, a good cause, who's gonna go out and see that they're actually servicing those X amount of individuals?
well, we're gonna be conducting monthly meetings, and the personnel at the jail, the reentry coordinator is gonna be keeping track of all those people who are eligible and who participate in the program in the jails.
And what's the DA's office have to do with it, or just identifying?
Pretty much identifying, and also your office of the Commission of Probation is gonna be involved as well, is
Now I have to stop asking questions.
yeah, maybe, no, but you're not getting any funding, sorry, but,
All right. Well, I will go on record. I do work for a probation department under the OCP, and on record, I have no conflict of interest, and we are not getting any money from this. Go ahead.
right, so, I guess your roles and the DA's roles are gonna be, of who qualify for the program and who are eligible. So if they reoffend and come back, it'll be up to them, to determine whether or not they're eligible to remain in the program.
And I want to also, state that we are working with ROCA, not on everything that they do, but on people who are on probation and who are getting services through ROCA, and so far, so good. A much better organized program than we've dealt in the past for these type of services, and that's why I'm asking these questions.
Right, and as you know, we're looking to, we have a training grant now, the Camden County, for reentry and young adults. We're looking to, kind of start a young adult, court or pod in the jails as well. And this also helps with our, Hamden County Reentry Task Force, with the programming we're trying to do for reentry.
Let me turn it over after one quick question, John. The number you stated is a little different than the number in the cover letter. The letter with Manny's, the chief's signature on it is $979,057.
That's what I said.
That is the grant?
Yeah.
I thought I heard seven something, sorry. Any other questions? Counselor Sullivan?
Yeah, thanks. John, so $1 million, is this to be spent on offenders and people reentering that are Holyoke residents? Or, this money's going out to, the county district attorney, to ROCA, which services other communities, but this money's coming into Holyoke. Is it specifically earmarked for Holyoke residents and programs in Holyoke, or is it spread out through?
Not specifically. It's more of a county-based program. However, our role in this is we're gonna be taking our residents and, referring them to this program. So that's our portion.
Well, is Chicopee getting any grant money, or Springfield, or,
I have no idea.
So Holyoke's getting all this money, but it's going to be for people also outside of Holyoke.
Correct.
Why aren't these other cities getting money? Why is, I don't get it. Why isn't this, if we're getting the money, why isn't it specifically earmarked for programs for people from Holyoke that are getting out of jail?
Well, I think this particular grant, I believe needed some city or law enforcement agency to be the grantee. Whether or not other departments put in for it or not, I have no idea. If I sat around and waited to see if they put in for it, then we wouldn't be getting the funding.
No, I mean, great job on getting this kind of money coming through and us administering it, but, so I'm to understand that none of the surrounding committees at all have applied for it. There could have been 10 million available in Western Mass if other communities had stepped up?
No, I think there was only probably 8 awards that were awarded. But you have to keep in mind too that some residents who are in Chicopee or in Springfield and go to jail and they come back out with a new residence in Holyoke, then there's a Holyoke person that we're dealing with, so.
Okay, thanks.
John, Councilor Sullivan asked some good questions, but how much, the police department's not gonna do this just out of the goodness of our taxpayers. How much will you be taking to pay for what the police department will be doing?
Well, like I said, our portion is $30,000 a year.
I can't write as quick as you talk.
Oh, sorry.
Any other questions or discussion? Councilor Bartley?
Yeah, John, I just want to reiterate that this was $30,000 a year, and that's going to supplement the salary of a narcotics detective? Or did
Correct.
I heard, okay. And then how many years is this grant?
It's a 3-year grant.
3 years, okay, I didn't hear that part.
Back again.
And then when does it,
Anytime.
when would it commence?
It actually began October 1st of this year.
Okay. All right. And then, just so I understand, just for a second.
So just to clarify for you too, some of that 30,000 would be taken out of from my salary as well for conducting for submitting the financial and programmatic reports.
Okay. And what's the source of this? I don't see it in the order, so.
It's through the Department of Justice.
And, boy, that's a lot of money to administer, and what you're, so how does that work? I mean, what are they wire funds or something to so we're gonna set up a special account, wire funds to that account, and then?
No, so what we're gonna do is basically do subcontracts to all the partners. So they'll have their own budget per year for all their positions. And what they do is they'll submit an invoice to us at the police department. We'll review it because we know what their monthly budget is, and then we'll submit it for payment. And after a month of payments or a quarter, then I'll go into the DOJ system and seek reimbursement to zero out the balances.
Okay, so, I mean, but that's, while you're making it sound simple, it sounds like it's a bit of a time-consuming.
Not when you have like a program coordinator for ROCA, a program coordinator for the jails, who compile all their finances and programmatic reports and then submit them to me. So pretty much they're doing all the legwork, and I'm just rechecking it for checks and balances and then submitting that full report to the Department of Justice. And once that's sent, I'll draw down funds and get reimbursed.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor McGee?
I just want to understand it a little better. So there's going to be one person in the sheriff's, one person in the DA's. How many in ROCA?
No, there's going to be probably 3 people at the Sheriff's Department and several people from ROCA who will be conducting trainings, doing high-set training, education training, their own cognitive therapy training, and job training as well.
So of the 900,000 plus, just call it 940 because we're taking 30 a year. 900,000 is going to these three different departments to train and then deal with high-risk youth offenders for 3 years. And we're going to get 90,000 over that 3 years. 30,000 is going to an officer. That's where I kind of got lost on that one. It's going to the narcotics division, or it goes to one officer, or it goes to where?
It'll go to multiple gang and narcotics officers who will be pretty much making referrals and tracking those guys who re-enter the city, but mainly making referrals, kind of similar to what we do with the SSYI grant.
So it's all the narcotic division, not just one person.
Right, it could be anyone.
Right. And of the 30,000, you, because you'll be getting the reports and submitting them to then pay, you'll get a fee yourself. Out of the 30.
Out of the 30, correct.
Okay. And for the narcotic officers to have access to the 30, they have to submit reports to you, they have to track what they do, or?
Yes.
Okay.
And they'll send referrals as well.
Okay.
John, just in piggybacking off of Councilor McGee and what I said earlier, ROCA, one of the things that ROCA does do, and I'm not sure if these individuals would qualify or be part of it, but is after a period of time when the person goes through education, goes through, their training, through their assistance through ROCA, they can provide them with work and stipends that they actually supervise. Either this money will go to that directly or probably supplement the salaries of the people who are overseeing the individuals, giving them more money to do that. Am I?
Right, when they get out. Yeah.
So ROCA is a good program. I worry more about, how we become responsible for the oversight of it, when we get these larger grants. And I'm going to ask our auditor a question in a minute, but I'm going to first defer to Councilor Sullivan with a question.
So Jen, I'm kind of circling back to where I was before, not only now about where the money and who gets to participate, but now, so we've got offenders in Springfield, they may come to Holyoke or wherever, but Holyoke police officers are going to have to monitor and follow up on the progress of participants, clients in other cities, non-Holyoke residents as well. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, pretty much. It's not as difficult or time-consuming as you may think, because they just would refer and make contacts to those peer leaders and program managers in ROCA to follow up.
But, so is the $30,000, is that a fixed capped amount? Is that what DOJ says that's the most that can go to the administrator?
No, that's just what we budgeted.
Okay, but, so we're budgeting in our resources to take care of issues, clients in the neighboring cities and towns, and their police departments aren't putting anything into it at all.
No, but we're doing our part to try and reduce recidivism.
I know we're doing our part. The surrounding communities aren't doing anything. Am I correct in that assumption there? This is falling on us.
I'm not sure what they do with their
$30,000 a year.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they do with their, or if they have a reentry program or what, but we're doing our part, and we're doing our part for the county as well.
I believe that. I'm proud of that, but what I'm getting at is for $30,000 a year, we're going to take on the responsibility of all these surrounding communities as well to monitor and follow up on this program without any assistance from any of these surrounding communities. Do you think $30,000 is enough?
We're not monitoring those other cities and communities. We're monitoring individuals, whether they come from Chicopee, whether they come from Holyoke. We're monitoring those individuals in the county.
I get it, we're monitoring people from another city, living in another city for 30 grand a year. Not just Holyoke residents, but all these other surrounding communities, and the other communities don't have to do a damn thing.
Well,
Should we be getting more than $30,000 for that?
we're not really doing that much of work. The other positions are doing all the work and all the follow-up and all the data, compiling all the data, and alls we're doing is just retrieving the information that they have, and basically our narcotics detectives are gonna be making referrals. So if a high-risk guy gets charged with a gun, then he's gonna see and make a referral to this program inside the jail.
Right, but our officers are making referrals for incidents that happened in surrounding communities, people that live in surrounding communities. It's taking up their time as well on something that had nothing to do with the Holyoke Police Department. Am I correct in that?
And, yeah, we're not following up on other departments.
Maybe I'm not making my point.
Well, I think everybody's making their point, but I think we're missing what's happening here is, this is $1 million coming from the federal government. They won't give it to us directly. They give it to the state.
Right.
The state won't give it to ROCA directly because they don't want to oversee ROCA themselves. So they funnel it through the city. And we've done this before, and the auditor hates it when I say this. We become administratively responsible for the grant, not for doing the work. And the $30,000 has got to pay for what you, if you're the officer in charge in the police department, for your time, and the time in the auditor's office for what they have to do, which is really going to be relying upon you doing your job, the PD doing their job, making sure ROCA is doing their job.
Correct.
The sheriff's and the DA's office are just referrals. We can't mandate it's Holyoke people only because we cannot change any of this language, but we can sure encourage you to tell ROCA Holyoke people come first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Councilor Leahy?
Yeah, I don't know why we're so hung up on this. We've been doing this for years with the Shannon grant, and it's been working fine. The reporting isn't time consuming. It's not a big issue. We get the lion's share of the grant. What we're doing is just aggregating data and sending it to the state, to the feds, and they're going to disaggregate the data. I see this as a no-brainer. Thank you.
He says it much better than I do. Bellamy, can we take the time just to have you weigh in on this real quick? We talked about this in the past, but more important, we have a very special, no longer guest in our audience, but for the first time and second time in this room, for the first time on the payroll, we have our new auditor. Tanya, if you'd like to come forward with Bellamy and just say hi to everybody.
I'd love to.
And welcome.
You only can say that once.
Hey, wherever you're, yeah, come in if you want, you're comfortable. We'll get Tanya used to this. Bellamy, I know we talked about this in the past. I think you just heard this whole conversation, and just part of Councilor Sullivan's worries and part of my worries, these grants come and go, and Councilor Leahy said it perfect. It's more about an administrative look that we have to do, and the stats and the fundings, and make sure that we know that the monies are being spent wisely by the actual providers. Do you have anything that you would add to that, or any concerns that you have, or are you comfortable with the city playing this role? Because it is an important grant.
I do have a concern, and that concern is that this is a reimbursement grant, which means as you get towards the end of the year, we will have bills that we pay, and we have to hope that we get reimbursed by June 30th so that the fund that this money is in is not in deficit on June 30th. And I don't see how that cannot happen, i.e., I don't see how it can't be in deficit, because there are always bills coming in, and then there's requests going to the feds or the state to reimburse, which requests may or may not be handled in a timely fashion by the feds or the state. So my question is why does Holyoke have to be the administrative entity for this grant? Why couldn't one of the other communities?
John, can you
That
make
might have a
sure,
bigger stake in it than we do.
can you make sure that the providers are leery of the end of the fiscal year, each of the end of the fiscal years, and that bills are put forward in a timely fashion?
Yes, I can adjust the way they invoice it.
Bellamy, that answers one of your questions. The other question is not answerable by us. But Holyoke has always been a front runner in terms of using resources wisely, using resources that are, whether it was the opioid grant that we talked about earlier this evening, the Shannon grant, as Councilor Lacey pointed out, or this new reentry grant, which is something that is very high on the radar screen of our new sheriff, in terms of, making reentry work and saving money for the taxpayers in terms of recidivism and redundancy and people reoffending. But we could talk about that all evening. I think it's a good point. I think it's Councilor Sullivan's point, but it doesn't exactly outweigh, in my opinion, doesn't outweigh the good of this grant. But Councilor Leahy.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor McGivens. What exactly is the buyback, or what exactly do we have to put up for it? Is this matching at all?
No matching.
And so Bellamy brings up excellent point, because you know how the funding, you know how we do our books with the fiscal year. ROCA probably doesn't do it in the same time as we do. I don't know what their fiscal year consists of. It's probably January or December 31st. So we just have to make it adamant that they know that, and they have to know how we do our business. So just please relay that message.
Right, because there are no requirements as far as reimbursement goes and timely reimbursements. There's no set schedule. So I can make an adjustment with all the partners so that invoices are received and payments received prior to invoicing and going into a deficit before the end of the fiscal year.
It just needs to be managed very carefully. You can easily get an invoice. I'm not going to take it till July, so that the current fiscal year, but it's something that has to be focused on very carefully at the end of the year.
Do you feel comfortable moving forward? Okay.
Thank you. Councilor McGee.
Do we have a copy of the grant itself? Do we have a copy of the conditions and documents?
I can get a copy. It's probably 70-something pages.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
I read a lot. Enclosed, you'll find a grant award and special condition documents. This award is subject to all the administrative and financial requirements, including the timely submission of all financial and reports, resolutions of all interim auditing findings, and the maintenance of minimum level of cash on hand. Should you not adhere to these requirements, you will be in violation of the terms of this agreement, and the award will be subject to termination for cause or other administrative actions as appropriate. So that is my problem. This is the award letter. I'm looking for these special conditions that tell us the tracking of the award and how it should be done correctly. Because that sentence to me says we might be on the hook.
That's the same type of award letter and special conditions we get with every federal grant from the Department of Justice that we've been doing for years, but I can get you a copy of those.
I'll have to see them. Because to me, if we get them all the time, bills come in late. We pay prior bills with this fiscal year's money. For us, we get it. We have money in the budget. If we have free cash, we do it. If, I'm not saying it's your fault, but someone doesn't submit it from the sheriff's department, someone doesn't submit it from the DA's until later, are we on the hook for that? I'd like an affirmative no. Someone comes in with a $10,000 bill and says, oh, we forgot to submit it. It's your fault. You don't get the $10,000 from us.
No, we draw it down. That's what they talk about, cash on hand. We don't do cash on hand. We don't draw down funds prior to to receiving invoices. We do it the reimbursement way. We
What
get
is the
the
procedure in
invoices.
place to make absolutely sure there's no liability to our dollars? It's not really free. But based on that sentence alone, I'd just like absolute reassurance that if for whatever reason something goes haywire, that's fine. It doesn't matter to me. It's not going to be on our liability. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somewhere in that 70 pages, that answer. If you can point it to me, I'm all in favor of it.
Between now and next Wednesday, could we
What-
do that for?
What do you want, a copy of the
Well,
grant and the special
yeah,
conditions?
Copy of the grant, electronic, okay?
Fine.
And just if you know what Councilor McGee is looking for, if you could just flag it for us. And, or, you know, the law department could help out too, and the auditors. I think the law department might be able to read through some of what Attorney McGee is talking about.
Right.
Anything else? Chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion pursuant to receiving that answer.
Motion that we recommend upon receiving our questions being answered, and recommend that this grant be accepted and adopted to the full city council next Wednesday. All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. John, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Dale, are we waiting for Jeff? No. Okay. Okay. I was told Jeff was coming. Well, that's okay. We got three things we got to do. I think we can do them quick. If, our next section of the agenda is with the fire department. I explained before we started, items 6, 7, and 8. Oh, no, 8 and 9, we got to do a little bit separate. I'm trying to see what order they're in, Bellamy. 6. Well, there's one here that talks a little bit different. I will explain that in 1 second. And, okay, if we could take up all the items from the fire department, and we'll break our discussion down, our votes down into it. It's going to be 3 separate votes.
So 6, 7, 8, 9 for discussion?
Yes.
I'll make the motion that we take them up as a package for discussion.
Hey,
Councilor Donald?
Yeah, it just looks like there's a number missing on this.
There is on the
The
agenda.
6. Okay, there is, okay.
That's what I was
So
trying
the
to
second
figure
one,
out.
all right, so the second one is like
And
6, 6
While we're
B.
going to get the discussion going, I'll
Okay.
figure that out.
Okay, no problem.
Councilor Thomas pointed out why I hesitated there, and we have 3 transfers. Our business manager, Dale, and our deputy chief come in, if you don't mind. We're going to be nice this evening. Dale, come in and have a seat wherever. Just grab a couple mics. When you push the button, you see a green light, you know the mic's on. The first 3 orders we're going to talk about are transfer requests. The first 2 will come from the firefighters line item and going into deputy chiefs. The second one from the firefighters line item into deputies, captains, lieutenants, and the third one from the alarm officers into supervisors' alarms and assistant alarms. The amounts, real quick, item number 1 is $7,761.57. That goes directly to deputy chiefs. The second one is $11,245.07. That's broken down into deputy chiefs, captains, and lieutenants. Both of those items are from the firefighters line item. The third one is the alarms, which is $1,097.46, broken down into supervisor and assistant supervisor of alarms. On the request, Dale, I think this is where you come in, because I told that you did the bulk of the work after a grievance was filed and resolved within house. This is questions of salaries going back to 2015,
Correct.
okay? And it was the grievance, well, you know what? Could you explain the grievance and why we're catching up to this, and then we can ask our questions? And by the way, Bellamy, the auditor, you know, as typical in all of our departments, but especially our larger departments, you know, does the calculations, does what's going on, but I'm not sure if I think Bellamy understands there was a grievance, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. And of course, the deputy chief is going to tell us everything is perfect.
I think he wants to talk first.
Let me speak,
Bellamy, go ahead.
because Dale and I worked together on this for a number of months. So first of all, these three items and the other two items are all basically funded not from the 2019 budget, but from an accrual that I set up to carry money over from 2018 to 2019. I did this at the very end of the fiscal year when we found out, literally a couple of days before closing, that an error had been made in firefighter salaries effective July 1st, 2015. That meant that we owed a retro adjustment to the fire department, and it was really everybody, for 15, 16, and 17. So I did the best I could in a quick period of time to figure out how much that might be, and I ended up accruing $72,000 from the firefighters line, because there was unspent money there, and $10,000 from the alarms line, because there was unspent money there. So that's the source of all the money for these transfers you're going to see. We are not taking a penny from the 2019 budget. We're taking it from that accrual that was carried over from last year. Point two.
Bellamy, can I stop you?
Yes.
And only so, even if it's not asked tonight, I think it's going to be asked next week. What's in front of us is from firefighters line item.
Mm-hmm.
So that is this year's budget.
Yes, but okay, the accrual increased this year's budget by
Okay.
more than what's in the budget book. That's what an accrual does.
It's fair
So
to
it's-
say, not that we would have noticed, that was not mentioned during budget time, though.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's
All
an
right, so
increase in the budget
Even
of
though it's
funds that were
above
carried
what
over
we
from.
needed for what we were looking for firefighter salaries
Right.
this year, it was there, we just didn't know it was there.
We supplemented it with this amount.
Okay.
Okay, so second point, Dale spent a lot of time during the summer trying to calculate the actual money that was owed to all these people. And we had good news. For example, the error only affected about half of the employees, not 100% of the employees, and I had accrued for 100%. To be very specific, it only affected employees who had adders to their base salary. Anyone who was recently hired and at the base salary rate was not affected in any of these years. So anyway, she calculated all the money that was owed, and it worked out to be less than half of the amount that I'd accrued. So, for example, item, what I am calling 6A, was transferring money from the firefighters line to pay what was owed to the deputy chiefs, the captains, the lieutenants. Item 7 is what was transferred from the alarms line to pay for the supervisor of alarms and the assistant supervisor of alarms, who were in different line items from the alarms. Is that clear? I hope that's clear. Since we had this money, we decided we would also use it for other things that came up in 2019. For example, we settled the contract for the deputy chiefs, and the first item, item 6, is part of the retro that we owe the deputy chiefs for the contract which provided for an increase in fiscal 18. So that 7761 is that retro. And item 9, wait a minute, sorry. Is it item 8? Sorry. Item 8 is the, what we owe the deputy chiefs for a salary adjustment in 2019 based on the contract provisions. So we were lucky to have this little windfall that we could solve some of these problems without touching base money.
If just
That
for a minute,
explains- Yeah, so now.
we're gonna
questions.
call we're gonna call 6 is the 7,761, it's on the agenda. The next item does not have an agenda item number, so we're gonna call it 6B.
6B,
And that's the
okay.
11,245.07.
Right.
And then the alarms is 1,097.46. I'm up to date there. Dale, on those three items, you were very integral in, once this was identified by the employees, you were integral in working on the calculations and identifying who was owed.
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything that you want to add to what the auditor told us?
No.
Okay.
It was perfect.
Good. Now, Bellamy, I left out the next one.
Yeah.
Because the deputy chiefs are in item 6B for what happened, or, what should have happened in 2015. And when you say July 1st of 2015, is that fiscal year?
Fiscal 16.
Fiscal year 16, thank
Correct.
you. Just so we're on the same page. Now, earlier this year, received a copy of the deputy chief's new contract, and there was an appropriation that was before us that was connected to that contract. And we adopted that appropriation, which we feel at that time ratified the contract, because the only thing we vote on is the appropriation for a contract, although we have every right in the world to understand the contract. This 23,000 is in addition to what we've already voted on?
Let's take a step back and let's see if I have this right, Dale. Item 6 is a supplement to what you voted on, because what you voted on originally was the salary adjustments for 2018 in that contract, and item 6 represents adjustments for overtime and sick days and vacation days that had not been calculated as of the time that submission was made to the council. So this is actually part and parcel of that, of the 2018 contract, retro, I will call it.
I don't
Item
know what the heck.
8 is prospective. It's what is needed for the 2019 contract
Yes.
to pay for the increases that take place in 2019. And I don't remember what they are, but Dale could tell you what those are. It was a percentage in July and another percentage in January, maybe, I don't know. I don't remember.
It's a 1% in July and 1% in January.
Perfect, yeah.
And we had that language, okay, and we knew that was coming, but we had an appropriation in front of us,
Okay.
because we don't vote on the contract, we vote on the appropriation. At the top of my head, I will research it and find out what number we've already adopted.
I can tell you,
Okay, thank you.
because I have that. Just have to find it. $11,115.
And now this 23,243,
Covers till the end of June 30th of 2019. Without this $23,000, I can't finish wages for the deputy chiefs to cover the entire fiscal year.
that means the fiscal year is a 12-month budget, so you have to lay them all off right now.
Excuse me? I didn't live, my mind was like, okay,
You have to lay them
breathe.
off till May, you have to lay them off till June.
That's a
Wait.
fundamental Massachusetts, Tanya, I want you to listen to this one. Fundamental Massachusetts finance statute.
Yeah,
You have to have enough money to cover 12 months.
correct.
And if you don't, you have to,
Lay off.
reduce.
Get
saying
rid of.
goodbye to
And in
Mr.
a salary account, the only
bargain
thing you can do is
down,
reduce a person.
demote. I'm just kidding.
Tell me, 11,000 what?
So the $11,115 covered their retro from July 1st to October 6th, 2018. Going forward, October 7th to June 30th is this $23,243 for all 6 deputies to cover their wages. That is just their wages.
Dale, but why do we have a retro going to 6B? I don't know if you have your agenda in front of you, but
Which one's 6B?
it's
The top one
the
without the
top
number.
one on page 2.
Very top.
And that goes, that,
$2,523? Is
yes,
that one there? That covers the miscalculation of the contract under 1693. That was 7/1/15 to 6/30/18. That's just the wages on that for those people. There was, right, the deputy chiefs have
That's
their
the
own
old-
contract.
Okay.
That's the retro for
the Retro, old the old.
that was not paid properly.
Correct.
You know for a fact it wasn't paid?
Oh, we did some research. We did some heavy research on that one, to be sure.
And I said this from phone conversations, Dale, if we can just go back, the unions respectfully each filed a grievance about this.
Correct.
And that process, was internal. It was the chief, something to do with the Board of Commissioners, I'm sure, but never went outside of that. It was resolved.
Correct.
Okay. And these are your numbers, Bellamy agreeing with the numbers, helping
Well,
you do
the
it.
minute the auditor heard that there was an error, I said, we have to pay it. There was no question. So actually, a grievance wasn't even necessary. And once they found out that we were acting in good faith, I think it all kind of went away.
No questions asked. Here, we understand that. We're just trying to get to the numbers, and I'm still having a problem with item number 8. Because that's got to be more than, item number 8 is for the new contract, which
Correct.
we've already done 11,115.
But the 11,000 only went from 7/1, no, the 11,000 only went from 7/1/18 to October 6th, 18. So that's 3 months of 6 people under their new contract of their wages, which are increased by,
Times that by 4.
At the original 11,000, I believe the original 11,000 that went before you, when you guys ratified the when you voted on the contract, was for the retroactive from the 1.5 and 1.5 would have been January 1st of 17, or sorry, July 1st of 17, and then it would have been January 1st of 18. So that $11,000 covered that. I believe from the time that, he calculated that, it still had to come to city council. It got moved to finance, and then by the time it gets there, those are also wages that we didn't receive. So now we're at the point where it's October, and we're still, so I believe that additional 7,000 probably covers that. And then I believe the 23,000 is the transfer, because I remember you asking the chief if he had the money to pay it, the wages in the budget, and he said, yeah, I'd have to move some stuff around, and I believe that's what he meant by I'd have to move some stuff around, was from that budget, from the firefighter item to there. Because I do remember someone asking the chief if he had the money to pay that moving forward, and he said yes, he wouldn't have to come back, but he'd have to move some money around.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the work that's done, and Dale, I've worked with you a long time, and I not only appreciate it, but I trust it. There's one concern I have, is when we did this original 11,115, when we had your contract in front of us, by the way, it is a good contract, I think we all agreed to that, we were led to believe that for this fiscal year, that 11,115 was going to cover the entire year. And we voted on, and I, made the presentation to the full city council, and I even purposely said, I don't know why that night, I remember saying it, that this appropriation, ratifies this contract and covers it for the entire fiscal year. And no one ever told us that, no, we need an additional appropriation because of the calculations, because of what was happening and what was going to roll over into the new contract.
And I will take the hit for that, because I was under the same impression you were, and I probably gave you that impression, that the 11,115 was all we needed. I didn't know that more was coming. So if I sat here and represented it, which I might have, I don't remember, I was just plain wrong.
well, in all
And
fairness,
I was corrected
too,
subsequently when I got a surprise transfer from Dale.
Now-
in all fairness too, this $23,000 also encumbers the new raise that they will receive January 1st, 2019. So they're getting, I think, 1.5 between July 1st and December 31st, and then they get an additional 1.5 starting January 1st to June 30th.
1%.
Yeah,
1%.
and that was all very clear in the contract, and the city council was all, informed of the percentages. City council was happy with the percentages, and that was fine. It just, and Bellamy, thank you. let the record show, Bellamy said he was wrong for the first time in how many years?
I'm wrong daily.
I'm kidding, thank you, because that's all I need to hear, because it's not gonna change my mind on the contract.
Again,
We
I
just
may
want-
not have understood exactly how the process was going at that point. I just.
And in fairness, this was happening at the worst time of year, probably the worst time of year to do a contract, is the end of a fiscal year, which we're trying to wrap up, the beginning of a fiscal year, which we had more questions, thank God is not as bad as the year before, and it's the perfect storm, and this, I understand. I'm done with my questions, but I think there may be more questions. Counselor McGee?
Yeah, so I'm clear on it. So there was an error in 2015, 16, and 17,
In 18.
and 18. When was that found?
It was found, I want to say it was I'm not, I don't have the grievance exhibit, but it was sometime
Couple
we
of days
figured out
before
in
the
like
end of
May or June. It was of 2018. Someone noticed that the contractual rates in the contract matched our checks. They were off. And it deviated depending on how many add-ons you had. So basically, someone who only had a straight, like even a deputy chief, if they were just a deputy chief and they weren't an EMT and they weren't in the office and their pay was correct. It was once something happened in the calculations when you had the add-ons for the different levels of pay. So the more levels of pay you had, like my pay difference, I'm only an EMT on top of deputy. Mine was like $3 a paycheck. But depending, I know people like Deputy Chief Prescott-Polsky, who's that, and he's the executive deputy, so he gets executive pay. His was a much bigger, and I think a lot of the people who had the bigger hits were the people in the office who had the add-ons, for fire prevention, and then they had an add-on for, like, say, medical officer, and then they had an add-on. The more add-ons, the bigger the discrepancy ended up being.
So for 2 years prior, no one knew about this? Correct. And only in May of 2018, almost 3 years later, they noticed it
Yes.
in their paychecks.
I'm as Gil said, I don't even look at my checks. I take the stubs and I put them in my locker, and I never open them.
So from
I
May,
do now,
so
but
from May to June, because we're getting close to doing the budget and having hearings, we calculated,
No. No, it wasn't even brought to my attention until almost the end of June, which the very same day I ran to Bellamy's office.
again, I
And
told you my time, I don't have the
It was
document in
literally
front of me,
like
but
the
I could-
very last
I could
week
have
of
the
the
exact
fiscal
date
year.
for you tomorrow if you'd like.
I'm just
but
trying to figure that out, because whether it's April, May, June, as we're saying we're accruing 2018 money to dump it into 2019 to pay for the discrepancy of, it was 72,000 from firefighters and then another 10 from the alarm, and that'd be 82,000, correct? So 82,000 was taken from prior year, dumped into this to then deal with that magical number.
But that would be us. That would be on the city auditor,
So that was from
Bellamy.
April, May, or June. We knew about it in April or May.
No,
We didn't know about it until the last week of June.
So last week of June now. Last week of June, we knew about it. We were able to calculate that number.
Poorly.
So,
Under pressure, so we didn't do it.
Put your mic on.
she wasn't done calculating until sometime in
September.
mid-September.
right.
So
how
I
did
did the
we
best
come
I
up-
could to calculate, and I came up with a range of somewhere between
right, so we came up with a
50,000 and
range.
110,000, and I went with a midpoint.
So we came up with a range of 82,000, which was carried over, and based on all these calculations, is about 56,000. So $56,375.67 is going to cover all the errors. I'm just taking from every fire line here. 11,000.
Some of those lines have to do with the contract, not the error. Only,
Okay, so only,
the
if we're saying
error
only
is,
the error is 6B and 7.
And
Right,
the
and
14,000
whatever we
is not
paid the
part of error
firefighters.
either. That
All right,
14,000
all right,
was
so
from
let's
Lieutenant
get to those
Cunningham.
numbers. So if the error is just 6B
plus
and
7,
7,
plus whatever we paid the firefighters, which we didn't have to do a transfer for, because it's in their line, and that I think is about $18,000. So the total error is about
so we've
30.
already paid so that's new. We've already paid firefighters, they had errors too, not
Yes,
just the
absolutely,
deputies.
absolutely. We paid as quickly as we had the calculation. 'cause
And how much was that?
About 18,000 is my recollection for the firefighters.
Well, the entire thing is $19,347.99.
Oh, well, okay. That's all?
The deputy chiefs, captains, lieutenants, alarm division. All the firefighters, or majority of them. Grand total you said was,
Top of the page.
top of the page, is $19,347.99. So we're all caught up.
Correct.
So if we approve the 11,245 and the 1,097, we are gonna hit the 19,000.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Or you already spent
Well,
19,000 adding this to it?
No, we're not adding anything. I've already spent that 19,000 to pay the people who were owed, and then the firefighters, we don't need to reimburse that line item because the line item's already there. So these are just to reimburse those line items to cover for the rest of the fiscal
I
year.
know those items are there. We didn't know about it until just now. That's why, that's the 19,000, if you guys want to
Yeah,
see
we're
that.
trying to back out the money from the 72,000.
So,
We have other questions, we gotta make sure something else in a minute, but
Okay,
right, so,
it's coming out of the line item for firefighters.
correct,
And $72,000 are in that line item.
correct,
Found out
correct.
tonight.
so 19,000,
To that 72,000.
right.
Well, that's city auditor. I'm just trying to help, sorry.
No, you're doing.
If I'm making it more confusing.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. We're just trying to make sure the number here, because if $72,000 went into the firefighters line item,
Which it did.
12201-51105, that's the line item I'm talking about. We just paid $2,523.01 out of deputy chiefs. Captains were $3,409.92. Lieutenants were $5,312.14. Alarm was $1,370.40. So then firefighters was $6,732.52. So of the $72,000, $6,732 came from there.
Correct.
All right, so 6,732.52. Pass. So now we need the numbers from 11,245.07 and then 1,097.46, which then
1,097 is from the alarms.
Right.
well, alarm says 1,370.40 cents.
Well, that includes Joe and Billy.
Well, no,
If you look at that calculation there,
yep.
if flip the page back over. So see where it says alarms?
Alarm
Fire
check.
alarms? So those two are calculated into the final total. Does that make sense?
Here's another way of asking it. Was that 1,300 already paid to them?
Yes.
And that came from where? Their line item,
They're line
Alarms
items.
line item.
Yes.
Wait a minute, which,
which now is short, and that's why you're going for the 1,097.
Correct.
Okay.
yep.
And you're, all right, so that's what I want to make sure on there.
If you look to see, the supervisor is 618.55, and the assistant is 478.91. So
Okay.
those two need to be reimbursed that amount.
Of the 72,000 carried over, how much has been used?
Roughly $19,000.
Well, the
Then we're going to add
that.
on this.
Plus, no, we also,
Because I'm only
Also, wait a minute.
seeing, Bellamy, $6,732.52 for all firefighters. If it's coming from that line item, how'd you move it from there to,
I didn't.
all right, so that's my point.
Oh,
Of the 72,000,
Nothing's, yes.
which everything is in firefighters,
It's
that's
all
what you
still in
told us.
firefighters, correct. It's been spent in other line items, but it hasn't been reimbursed to those line items, if that's your point.
Yeah, that is my point.
Yeah.
It's been spent.
Yes, it has been spent.
Okay, we're getting to the whole problem here. So, of the 72,000, how much will come out of there to make everything square? How much are we using in the 72? Actually, it's 82, because 10,000 came from the alarm division.
Right.
How much are we spending to keep everything whole? Are we using the whole 82? We're using
No,
72?
we're spending basically $19,000, whatever that total was. Across all those accounts, it's $19,000.
So the excess, call it
Right, the
52,000,
excess.
where's that going?
Where's that going?
Yeah, where is it?
I think I understand.
It's in the firefighter line item.
You
That's why
said
we're
you-
proposing that we make these other transfers to the deputy chief's line and to the lieutenant's line to solve other problems, because the money's there.
Of all the problems,
Mm-hmm.
what did it add up to? Everyone, firefighters, lieutenants, captains, alarm division, what was the total damage?
I'm working on it right now.
$76,700
Oh, okay.
$15, give or take.
Guys are tough. Hold on.
And we're not to our last line item,
Okay, so,
which I've kept, so you know, we're keeping separate for a second,
So,
which is another 14,000.
right, so the error was 76,000 in total, Joe? Based on all the numbers?
Well, I heard Dale say something about the alarms division number, which I did calculate it, but if you spend $19,000 is sustained in the firefighters to take care of the problem, there's a total of $56,618 on the table tonight. That's everything. And then from firefighters, and then from the alarms division, there's 1,097. That's where
Hold on
my
one
number
second.
came from.
oh, you just messed me up. Yeah, no, you need to add Cunningham. Sorry, I know we're not supposed to use people's names. Shh, stop.
Sorry, I'm with the firefighter and lieutenant.
Plus. 0.097.
And one point, just for the committee, when June came around and we had our hearings on the
Let me add
budget,
14.
first time around, we've asked every department to come in, everyone, no exceptions. Everyone was invited. We missed two. I think Wisteria Hearst was missed and Council on Aging.
I don't have a pen.
We asked every department head, based on your numbers,
I'll do mine one more
is
time.
there anywhere we can cut?
I took a picture.
Is there anything excess from before? No, no. Just found out 82,000 was carried over from a prior year and kept from us. That's where my biggest problem is.
What do you mean it was kept from you? That was money
Just
that
found
was
out about
just-
today.
It was money that was unspent. It wasn't that it wasn't,
And
because
it
of
goes
open
into
positions.
free cash to be rolled over to the next year.
Yes, it could have
Oh,
been free
yes,
cash.
it could have.
It could have been free
Yes.
cash, but
That's the
as the
transfer.
auditor,
Yep.
I felt obligated legally to accrue for a liability that I found out about at the
That
end
no
of the
one
year.
told us about. No one told us about the liability. We found out about it.
Because you had gone on summer break, for Christ's sake.
We just found out it was in May.
And I knew,
May.
no, it was not in May. This happened at
June.
the end of June.
June.
At
Knew
the
it.
very
June.
end of June. Like 2 days before, a week before we closed the books.
We don't do communications anymore. Don't do emails.
I knew that it would come up when we filed transfers in the fall, and we would communicate at that time. It didn't seem
October.
necessary to do it then.
Plus this number.
Plus this number.
I'm going to that now.
49.
Yeah, let me
Transparency.
ask you the next question while you're doing that. That's your thought. The next question is, once the dust settles,
I got 57.
with the transfers from the line item for firefighters, will the balance of that line item be sufficient to pay for firefighters for the rest of this year,
After taking out what we have for transfers?
this evening?
Yes.
Okay.
Provided that you guys don't, or they don't settle a contract. I have no numbers on a new contract.
That's different.
That's different.
I'm just throwing it out there too, just to be clear that I'm not saying yes.
There is no
to cover
money in the line
contract.
item for that contract.
Okay.
We've been told that. and we understand. And that appropriation would have to come in like what we thought happened in June, when the deputy chief's contract came in. If we go over the $72,000, I mean, a little bit of
No,
that.
I'm not even coming up with that. I mean, I'm coming up with 49,000. I'm coming up with just shy of $50,000.
All right, but we got
For
one more line
everything.
item here that we have to talk about in a minute.
I actually included that number.
You did.
I did.
Yeah, I got
Okay.
57.7 when adding that number.
How are you?
You and I are right there.
Are we on the same?
Oh, well, give or take, you know.
We're ballpark.
Round them off, yeah.
Yeah, with that 14,000 and all the other appropriations, I have 57,700 and, let me get it for you. 57,716.13.
I got 49,954.
I don't know where you got that.
At 11,245.
Yeah, you're missing the first page.
I need to,
7,000.
Counselor Leahy's been very patient here, if I could
sorry.
just, Counselor Leahy.
I think we should have a handout, maybe, so we're all on the same page in having these figures, because right now it just seems like everything is kind of like just fuzzy math here. And I just wanted to ask you, and Counselor McGee and I have these two questions written down, I think are on the same page, is how is your budget so inflated by so much?
How is my budget inflated by so much? What do you mean?
Well, you got an extra $72,000. So
I
when
didn't
that,
add $72,000 to the budget. That came from the city auditor.
okay, so let me ask you this, Bellamy, because this seems like a significant mistake. What, that we haven't heard about, this happened in June, why is it now the end of August, October, that we're hearing about this now?
It's not a mistake. It just means they didn't spend all their budget because they had open positions for some period of time.
So this money's not because of a mistake?
No, it's because they had open positions last year that they waited to fill, or they couldn't fill for a while, because as you know, the process of filling a firefighter position requires civil service and a
Right,
whole
so,
bunch
all
of,
right.
a very long process.
So this 1,097 and this 11,000, this has nothing to do with the mistake for, okay, so I guess I'm not following, because,
Yeah, the 11,000 and 1,000, and yes, those funds are from a mistake, yes.
okay.
The 72,000.
I just asked if there was a mistake, and I was told there isn't a mistake.
No,
So where's this mistake? I guess I'm not following that part.
okay, the mistake comes from the local 1693 contract that ran from,
I guess I'm asking who made this mistake? Because I just asked the auditor, and he said there isn't a mistake.
the mistake was made from the previous auditor,
And who was that?
Brian Smith. He was the
Okay.
one that made who sent out the calculations on a final rate sheet to myself and to another person in the audit department. We ran off of those numbers for that contract all this time because we did not know that there was an error. An error was brought to me by Deputy Chief Kadlevich, and as soon as I was notified of this, I went directly to the city auditor and explained there's a problem. So we did some extensive research, and yes, there was a problem. So I had to go back, and I spent the entire summer working on, because I'm one person.
So who's doing your position when you're doing this the whole summer?
Excuse me?
Who's doing your work?
I was doing both. I was doing all of my job plus this.
Okay.
When I came to figure out exactly what I needed and what was to be paid out, I sent those figures over to the city auditor's department in that format that you have on your table. In discussions back at the end of the fiscal year, we did not know what the scope would be because of the 7/1/15 to June 30th was a long time. Firefighters are paid a lot of different ways. We're not just talking about overtime, we're talking about vacation buyback. They sell 6 days right now. Personal day buyback is 3 days. Incentive buyback is 4 days. If you have 2,000 hours worth of sick time, you sell back 150 sick hours per year. So with all of those people that potentially could have been affected, because at that time, we didn't even know if the non-base people, if people who were just at the base level were affected. We didn't know. And it wasn't until we did more research and I did all the calculations that it was determined that there was probably about 19 people who were not affected. Everyone else was. Out of a department of 117 people, 19 people weren't affected. That's a lot of people. So I understand that, and I remember literally looking in Bellamy's face and going, oh my God, this could be expensive. because we didn't know, because of how many years were involved. It was 3 years.
Right, no, and the thing is, you gotta pay these men and women because they're owed it. There's no question, I'm voting for this, we gotta do it. But my thing is, how is this not gonna happen in the future?
Well, we can't predict that. We're human. I'm not going to apologize for being human. And I really didn't know. And it wasn't until, I mean, Brian Smith was meticulous. I know you guys know this. He was meticulous. And when he sends you a budget that says final, you accept it as final. You don't argue with it. You don't check it because you know he's meticulous. And yes, looking at what happened was a decimal point. 1 decimal point went over one too many and changed everything, because everything is run by Excel these days. So that it makes our lives a little bit easier, but in this case, it made our lives a little harder. And it happens, you know?
No, so I always look
do
at it.
apologize. I mean, I know that all I could do is fix it.
Yeah, no, and I always look at, well, in our position, you have to understand, we understand your position, but you have to look at our position, because we have to say, all right, there's a problem, we need to find a solution, and we have to make sure, there's 3 things in business: people, process, and product. And you guys obviously have a very good product, you guys are very good people, and so we have to make sure that the process is efficient and working. And so that's what, that's where my areas of concern are. So you feel comfortable that this process is going to work in the future?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All set.
And Dale, you don't apologize, because I think your manager, your chief, owes you big time for this.
There
Right?
should be a dinner in my future, right?
I think there's a dinner and a couple other little caveats. I would hope Chief Pond is coming your way.
Or, John
And
Kalavich is a lot of money,
In
too.
fairness to
He's the one who brought me the problem. He should give me at least,
And I
an
think
atta
to
girl.
what you were talking about also is on our end, we'd be a little more vigilant. It wasn't something that was like a right away in the contract. It actually, the error occurred in the 3rd year of it. So the first 2 years were right. So when you would normally check to say, okay, is everything right in the contract? It was. And this kind of snuck in the 3rd year. And at that point, you're not watchdogging it like you would have at the
My
beginning.
understanding
And I
too,
think
and I won't say
we learned
where
a
I-
lesson also, and it wouldn't go that far if there was an error.
My understanding too, and I won't say where I heard this from, is there, contracts are written, rewritten, and then finalized. And that at one point, the last draft before the final draft of the contract is what was presented to the auditor's office. And that's where the mistake occurred. They didn't have the final language that was adopted, and I'm just gonna stop there.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, to be honest. So you probably have more understanding of it than I do.
Not much more. Dale's the one that I trust.
Thanks.
And Bellamy. Because we need to get going here. Is there any other questions?
Make a
on
motion
these
to approve
items
it.
so far? Everybody comfortable?
So we have, how much left over after this? Your calculation is 57?
Yes,
I think it
Well,
was,
well-
it was 82.
57.
Yeah,
Haven't
if
seen
the
it.
19,000, there's 50, well, there's one more item here, which we have to discuss, which is in my numbers. And it just puts, to me, it's gonna be, once we do it all, and I'm just talking the firefighters line item, around 75,000. But the final item, and it's, because it's coming out of the firefighters line item too, Dale, you just told me you put that in this, is on our agenda is item number 9. And we tabled this from our last finance committee meeting,
This
which
was-
is $14,369.03 from firefighters to lieutenants.
Correct.
Okay, it's signed off by the mayor, signed off by the auditor, that these funds are available. And this is for the settlement of the Cunningham arbitration case.
Correct.
Okay. I think most of us know that Lieutenant Cunningham was at one point demoted, and after arbitration, he was reinstated with the right to back pay.
Correct.
So this would be back pay. There's also a person who was promoted when Lieutenant Cunningham was demoted to fill that position, which would create, at the moment, and there is precedent for this, an extra lieutenant. Is the money, the $14,369 include just Lieutenant Cunningham, or does it also include Lieutenant Krause's salary?
It does not include Kraus.
Okay,
It only includes Lieutenant Cunningham's lawsuit.
okay, so
along
this
with-
would get, this would be, I don't want to put words in your mouth, is this retroactive Or is this for the rest of the year for all lieutenants?
No, this 14,369 is just his. This goes back to his demotion going forward, but this also encumbers the miscalculated of funds for him. Because we had to pay his right away because of the lawsuit, his was the very first person, he was the very first person to receive the actual funds from the miscalculation of the contract.
Okay,
So that includes everything, so he's 100% square.
okay. So will the line item need additional dollars to get through the fiscal year?
I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because I'm looking at the very least one person leaving in January, which will give me the ability to take those funds and move them over to Kraus. So I think I'll be fine.
Okay. And I want to make one statement, then I'll let everybody ask their questions and make their statements, is we have no say over arbitration. We have no say over it, and we shouldn't. It's a personnel matter, grievance, same thing. You know, arbitration is even stronger than a grievance, you know, because a grievance can be resolved in many different ways. Arbitration is a grievance couldn't be resolved. It went to arbitration, arbitrator ruled the city must pay it. We do have a say where the money comes from, and that's why this is in front of us, and that's why we've had so many questions this evening about money coming from what we know as fiscal year 2019 firefighter salaries. And I think one thing I want to make sure is when this is all done this evening, I can tell the city council next week, once we do this, the budget is fine, you know, barring an exception, to get us through the end of the year. Not talking about overtime, I'm just talking about base.
Oh, right, this is just base pay. This is
Base
just,
pay,
well,
yes.
I don't call it base pay, I call it wages, because to me overtime is extra wages.
Okay. Now, we did table this at our last meeting, not so much for the calculation, but we tabled it because we wanted to ask Chief Pond some questions, and I think we wanted to ask some other questions from Councilor McGee. And in fairness, in fairness, Chief Pond did notify myself and Ryan, he could not make this evening. I did talk to him personally. I told him why this line item was here. So we can talk about it from a budget point of view, but the chief isn't here, and I don't know how far else we can go. So I'm just throwing that out.
I think she answered it. I guess I'll just follow up if I may.
Councilor McGee.
So of the 14,369, all that's going to Cunningham,
Correct,
full amount,
correct,
of which in there, that's just for back pay
correct.
and nothing as part of a settlement in the lawsuit other than back pay, nothing like legal fees or anything?
No, that is
Okay.
just the difference in pay between the firefighter line item and the lieutenant during the entire time that he was demoted, and then the made whole of the miscalculation from December, and I'm getting confused. July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, so he's whole.
Okay, so he's made whole. Kraus was moved in as a lieutenant as well to fill the spot pursuant to past precedent that we know of legally. He can't be demoted. So we do have sufficient funds from what you're saying is to keep paying him as a lieutenant until that person you're saying is going to retire.
Correct,
All right, so we're gonna pay for the lieutenant there before they retire, and then once they retire, you are sure there's gonna be sufficient funds. Because Kraus cannot get demoted. If he does, it's just gonna be another lawsuit. This one is $14,000 coming out of to pay for something that really we all knew was an issue. So I just don't want anything else coming back on us.
I don't foresee anything coming back. I can rerun the numbers again tomorrow if that's what
So
you all
honestly, if
want.
you're saying it's fine, I just don't want
The
to
way
put
that I
Kraus
saw
in
it
a
was I
position
should be fine.
have to be forced to do this type of stuff.
We wouldn't let that happen. I
Okay,
would come to you guys first.
Just making sure.
Well, I wouldn't, the chief would. This is my first time here.
Doing fine.
Thanks.
You've been with us before, Dale, and you've always done fine, but more important, a call over to your office and we get quicker answers than, and I'm not picking on our current chief, it's actually a history of chiefs in both our departments. They always refer to yourself, Katie McCoy in the police department, and to the auditor's department. Right, Tanya, taking notes? Yeah, you're not gonna quit tomorrow, right? Okay. I have a fundamental question, kind of, not a question, but kind of a statement towards Chief Pond and to Bellamy and for Tanya to hear. Transfers need to be initiated. This is state finance, all right? The mayor, the auditor tells us the funds are available. The mayor puts it in front of us. No one else can put any of this in front of us. Before the mayor can do it on this type of transfer, the head of the department, who also signs the budget book electronically, must sign the transfer. Chief Bond sign these transfers?
Yeah, I signed for him.
Okay, with his knowledge?
Yes.
Okay. In the day and age of electronic signing, I don't have a problem with that, but please tell Chief Pond that you signed for him.
Joe?
Counselor Bartley?
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to, so Bellamy, you accrued $72,000. That's a true statement, right?
Correct, in the firefighters line, correct, and 10,000 in the alarms line, for a total of $82,000.
Total of $82,000, 82,000. Okay, and then, what line item were those, in which, where were they accrued? In the, where would I find those in a budget book?
You mean last year or this year? I'm trying to figure out.
Whatever year, wherever you accrued it, you accrued
Well,
it
it's
with
the
an
firefighter-
account number,
the
so
fire-
what's the account number?
The firefighter line item is 12201 51105, and the alarms number is 12201 51110.
Okay, so that $82,000 accrual, so we have $57,716 more or less in transfers right now. So the
Plus, I think it's plus the 14 for Cunningham, as I understand the calculations.
no,
Maybe not.
I don't think so. That's all these items together, okay? So can we just agree on that, please?
Sure.
6B, 7, 8, 9, comes out to 57. Deputy Chief, is that what you had?
57,716.
For all the items, Deputy Chief, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can we agree on that? So 57,716. And so the balance of the accrual, Bellamy, is where?
No, David,
How does that work?
there's also the $19,000
Oh.
that remains there.
Well, the 19,000, where's the $19,000, Joe?
It's the firefighters themselves. Dale, am I saying this right?
Excuse me?
The $19,000 was for firefighters retro.
Incorrect. Incorrect. The retro was $2,523.01 for deputy, $3,409.92 for captains, $53,1214 for lieutenants, 13 something for fire alarm altogether, and like 6,000. You have the
I
figures
think
right
the
there.
total for everyone was 19.
Yes, the total for everyone was 19. I can't see that far.
Is there any retroactive, David, I'm sorry for interrupting you. Is there any retroactive for firefighters themselves?
Yes.
It was 6,000.
But it was $6,732.52, but because we don't need to move those line items, there's no transfer.
David, and what we were saying earlier, we're trying to get to that $72,000. So David, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the $82,000.
The $6,732.52 does come out of that 72, because it's not part of the fiscal 19 budget wages.
Okay, David, I'm sorry.
Does that make sense?
Hold on, Dale, just, we'll clarify that in a minute.
Okay.
So Bellamy, the 57,716, so that's what the deputy chief and I agree on, and I think we all agree on it now. And then, so you accrued a total of 82,000. So I'm just trying to get my arms around where's so there's a difference between the 82 and the 57,716. So where's that now? And
Anything that is not spent on what we've talked about is still in the account, available to be spent.
It's a firefighter.
So, for example, in the alarms account, where there was $10,000 accrued, we've spent, on this page, $1,097, but Dale said the total, including the people who were in the alarms room, was about $1,300. So there's about $8,500 left in that
Okay,
account,
so that-
unspent.
So that more or less $25,000, that just represents unspent funds in those accounts.
Correct.
There's,
17,500.
Counselor, I think there's about 17,551 left, if you add all that together, to include the base firefighter retro. Because the total for that was like 64,449.
Where's that, Deputy Chief?
So we took all the retro payouts to include all the pays for the deputies and everything else, and when you add them all together,
It was
the total was 64,449. And so would that leave of the 82,000, it would leave 17,551 left.
Okay, I guess I'm just missing how we got to 64,449.
We had the 57,
Yeah,
760, that was everything but the base firefighter retro for the miscalculation. And that total was 67,3252. So that added to the 57, 716 was 64,449 rounded up.
It doesn't have to be transferred because it just comes out of that line item.
So that's why they didn't talk about it in the transfer, because it was already in that line item.
Okay.
But to look for the total amount that you guys were looking for, that's part of that.
So there would be a surplus of 17,500 to the end of the fiscal year.
and what account will that be in, Dale?
That would sit in the firefighters account. But you know how sometimes we need to fund the overtime account? Maybe if we need funds, we could take that and move that over.
Well, you know, sometimes how we try to, at the end of the fiscal year, we try to encourage departments to sort of,
Use their own
you know,
budget.
restrain themselves from spending into overtime, so we encourage that too. All right, and then this is just a comment, and I'm just gonna reiterate what others have said, that it'd be nice if we just had a little, I mean, you have to remember, we're those of us over here, we are part-time employees. I mean, we're severely part-time employees, and yet we're relying on full-time, some paid well, some not paid so well, staff, employees to sort of communicate with us, to let us know, so we don't have to have a surprise down the road. Then we have to come back and explain it down the road. So it's really important for the new auditor in particular to really kind of get her arms around all this. And when she has her arms around it, we can hopefully get a better dialogue ongoing during the current fiscal year, so we could try to understand it ourselves. I mean, it's not easy. So imagine our position where we're hearing this for the first time. And by the way, I have nothing to back any of this up. I mean, I guess there are those on the committee that just, you know, we have total carte blanche faith, but I don't. And I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm saying you're a lovely person. But I have no supporting data to this. I'm relying on this. This is what's in front of me to make major financial decisions. That yes, now we have it right. Well, I'd rather hear I had it right from our appointee, frankly. And then if she makes a mistake, then we can have our little harder conversation. But that's where I'm a little. I mean, we can't go back and do this over. But I don't. I hopefully we won't have to do it again. So that's that. Thank you.
Can I ask one last question? Do we know what free cash is going to be certified at? Is there any reports of any kind? We have what?
We just have bad news.
What's the bad news?
Well, because the budget was not, because the tax rate was not set until April, we haven't collected as much taxes as we normally would. We've collected only 96% of our tax rate instead of what we normally collect, which is 98%. So there's about $1 million negative swing in our revenues. So that's not a positive piece of news.
What about new growth? What's new growth at?
New growth, however, is very positive. 3 million, I believe.
What did we estimate at? I thought you said it was
We
at
estimated at much less than that. We estimated like 300,000.
or 300.
So there's good news there, there's bad news, that's what I mean, there's lots of things going on. Right now, we're trying to clean up some funds and trying to, make the numbers as good as possible.
When do we expect or hope for free cash to be certified? Any,
At this point, I'm guessing it'll be mid-November. I was hoping it would be end of October, but it's not done yet.
okay.
Councilor Hay?
Yeah, on that line of questioning, Bellamy, thank you. Is there any possibility, and of course anything is possible, but statistically speaking, is there any position, or is there any way the free cash could come back as zero?
Yes, of course there is.
And what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's going to happen?
It's possible.
Like percentage-wise, if you're guesstimating?
50-50? I don't know. At this point, I don't know, because the numbers we're not looking good.
Right, so just so people at home and people in this room, it could be a 50-50 swing that our free cash might come back as zero. Then if that's the case, this is not going to be good.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Joe?
Councilor Riley?
Yeah, so just along those lines, I appreciate the frankness there, Bellamy, that helps. And Tanya, so what kind, I mean, do we have a contingency plan? I mean, are we preparing for layoffs? What are we doing at this point? I mean, assuming the free cash,
Well, the
it comes in at the
contingency
worst
plan-
possible scenario, and I don't want to hear about the budget, because that's on the administration's part. So you're lucky you came in here and we figured it out. We figured out how to balance the budget here on the floor. Thank God we did it. Thank God us part-time employees figured it out when we were sitting here at night. So I don't want to hear again about from you about the budget not being balanced, and you come in here almost like pointing fingers at us. So that's on you guys. So what's the contingency plan going forward to try to resolve this if the free cash doesn't work out? Is there a plan for layoffs? What's the plan?
Well, the question at hand is, could we certify free cash later and get credit for all the money that's come in since June 30th? File for amended free cash, it's called. So we're looking at that as a possibility. We're doing everything we can.
And what's DOR's position on that? We're allowed to do that, I presume?
Apparently, yes, but I haven't, yes.
Say that, I gotta write that one down. That's amended free,
Something called amended free cash, which would allow us to look further into because right now, a lot of the 2018 taxes that were not collected in 2018 were collected in July, August, September. $800,000 to be precise, maybe even $9 by the time you get to October. So that just says, yes, the fact that we delayed the sending out the bills pushed some collections, delayed some collections. There's a difference between a 96% collection rate and a 98% collection rate. It's about $1 million. And we know for a fact we've collected $800,000 worth of 2018 taxes since the beginning of this fiscal year. Is that clear?
it's getting there, but at least that gives us some kind of a heads up on it. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, it's just not.
back in focus. We got a couple more things to do this evening. Is there anything further on the transfers that are in front of us this evening? Any further questions? Make a motion to approve as a package if there's no objection. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Real quick, Councilor McGee, we laid this on the table. We did have questions, I think a couple of us, about this is, I apologize, it's item number 10. This is the arbitration bills, which is paid half by the union and half by the city. Is there any questions about that? The transfer is?
633.
Correct. The arbitrator was Mary Ellen Shea. Deputy Chief, is that the arbitrator for
I'm not sure. I don't have-
Cunningham? Do you know?
I'm not positive,
You don't- okay.
Counselor. I don't have.
All right,
any
I don't have
for that.
answers. The chief should have been here this evening for this one. Again, he did apologize, we couldn't make it. So we can hold off on this if we still have questions. Arbitrators fees,
Arbitrators.
yes, arbitrators. I do know it's a 50-50 split with the union. No matter the results of an arbitration, a union pays for half and the city pays for the other half. We have bills in front of us, a bill and an invoice statement. Yeah. The city's cost is $5,633.52, local $1,693, is that?
That's 36.
Okay, so this is, I believe this is the Cunningham one, but they paid the exact amount.
A second.
To adopt. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have to get to our two guests out there. Bellamy, real quick, city solicitor's not here, but can you answer
Item 11?
item, yes?
Yeah, that's very simple. The city council passed an ordinance to give a 3% increase to certain employees. This transfer
Okay.
funds those increases from two sources, the head clerk in the auditor's office, a position that's been empty since July 1st, saving $13,000, and the assistant director position in the library, which has been empty since, let's say, August 1st, and is not going to be refilled in kind. So we took the money out of there and gave it to all the employees down below per this direction of the city council.
Answers my questions. Are there any other questions? This is the ordinance that came out of the ordinance committee to give anybody who had not had an increase.
Motion to approve the transfers?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Our final two items. We have two very patient city employees. Dale, thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Chief,
Thanks so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you, councilors.
Tanya, Bellamy, thank you
Alright,
so
thank you.
much. We don't need auditors in this one, do we, Mike?
Can I just thank all of you for the recent raise that I got?
You're welcome,
I
but
very much appreciate it.
you're welcome. I can't say it, but there should be more. And the chief still owes you something.
You know, you got his ear, maybe, you know?
Have a good night now. Thank
Have a good night, thanks.
Bye-bye now. Take care.
Okay. Our final item, it's actually two items.
Motion to take items number 12 and 13 together?
So moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This deals with the pool. Before us tonight is our Superintendent of the Department of Public Works, Michael McManus, and our Director, our, what do we call you these days? Parks and Recreation Director, Terry Shepard. Longtime employee with a new employee, right?
You put it on the Patriots?
We have, I meant to tell, no, I'm not gonna tell Dale, I'm a Giants fan. We have before us a presentation by Mike to get us up to date, and then we can go into questions and answers.
Peter's hanging up. The computer is,
I thought you said Peter was hanging up.
Yeah, I thought it was.
While that's loading, I'm going to ask you two quick questions.
Yes.
I sent you two emails, one in regards to a tree that's falling down, and the second one is in regards to 141, cutting back. I'm getting phone calls on people who just, they can't see in 141. I sent you an email on that. I also sent you an email on a tree that's in Ward 6 that's falling apart daily.
so the tree that's falling down, we have Asplin in town now, and we could get that taken. I don't have it for you right now, whether we can we have to do it in-house, if we do it in-house.
Or the Mass Highway?
Pardon me?
Or isn't that like a Mass Highway route? Mass DOT?
Yeah, but I doubt they would, anything like that.
Okay, well, if you could just do me a favor, that when I send you an email, if you could just reply to those were from a few weeks ago. So I don't know if you get them or if you don't get them.
I get them, and I saw the second one that you sent. I apologize, but I saw the easy.
I have an email to you that you haven't responded. A swing at Community Field for autistic children. You said it was going to be 2 weeks, it was going to be installed?
It was.
It was?
The swing's been up for months.
Okay.
Oh, Jimmy, I'm sorry. I remember months and months ago, but it took a few months to get the correct strap. It took 3 tries, but it has been installed. It should be up.
All right, the mother sent me an email.
Wing it. So, back on the record, what we're looking for here is item 12, which is the request for $550,000 of bonding in relation to the pulley-out pool. We're going to get an explanation from our superintendent on changes and things that are going on with the request for additional fundings. And I already have an email, which I've answered, from the law department that because this is Parks and Rec a project, that the bonding language is incorrect that was given to us at the meeting, which was from the mayor's office, and I don't know if they went through bond council. But that can be corrected. We cannot amend it, I told the law department. But if we get off of first base here this evening, and if we have some type of proposal for the city council, we can get that correct language by the time the full city council votes. With that in mind, Mike, can you bring us up to date?
Okay, so the pulley-out pool, it was built in 1981. It's open for 8 to 10 weeks in the summertime, 7 days a week. The daily attendance was 250 to 350 people per day in July, and then 150 to 200 people per day in August. The peak daily attendance that was observed was 500 people on that one peak day, and it's mostly due to weather. And in addition to swimming for the kids, there's also senior swimming, and there's other swim lessons and other groups that use the pool for an hour, sporting groups that use Roberts Field and the tennis courts. They also go up to the pool.
Mike, because we're on both on TV camera and on record, can you just tell us which one, where the pulley-out pool is located?
Sure.
Which one?
The pulley-out pool it's adjacent to the Fitzpatrick skating rink.
Formerly known as a state pool that the state reneged on their promise to keep a pool in Hoyoke because they formerly had the Shamora pool. That was an editorial comment. Go ahead.
So in 2014, the pool was losing about 5 inches of water every day to leakage. It's about 10,000 gallons per day that would have to get put back into the pool that was just leaking out. And then it was shut down in 2015 before the season started, just because of the condition of the pool. DPW, we tried to repair the pool every year to the best that we could using in-house resources, but in 2015 the decision was made to close the pool. In 2015, Ty and Bond did a structural inspection of the pool. They found a lot of cracks, a lot of spalled concrete, and that was Ty and Bond. So they came in and did a structural inspection. Then later on in 2015, in January, the city hired BSC to perform an assessment of the pool and come up with recommendations for rehabilitation. BSC is the designer who did the Roberts Sports Complex, the football field and the track, and they also did the design for the McKenzie baseball field. So while they were doing that, they took a quick look at pulley-out pool, and they came up with 3 alternatives. One is to repair the existing structure, which they didn't want to put a price tag on because With the limited scope they had, they didn't get into it deep enough to come up with a good cost for that. Another option was to build a new pool within the existing pool structure. So the existing pool would be the outside formwork for a new pool that would be built inside of that. They didn't provide a cost for that either because they were concerned about the existing pool, really shortening the long-term lifespan of that option. And then the third option that they analyzed was a complete demolition and replacement of the pool, so complete demo, new bedding, new forms, new concrete, and everything. And the cost that they provided for that was it was $1.2 million for the lanes for the lap swimming and $800,000 for the deep diving pool. That was done at the. It started in December of 2015, and it went to about April, May of 2016. Then, in 2016, there was the bond request for $1.5 million for the pool replacement project. We did have the park grant at that time for $400,000. The park grant was $400,000 reimbursement on construction costs. And the requirement for that was that all of the construction would be done and complete, and a pool would be ready to be used by June of 2018. And the scope of work and the engineering and construction that we were looking at before us, we didn't feel that we had enough time to adequately complete the design, bidding, and construction by that deadline. So we released the park grant, and we've subsequently resubmitted for a park grant. In that time, we have hired an engineer, AECom, to help the city with the design of the pool replacement. And in May and June of this year, they submitted a couple of conceptual designs for the pool. The city reviewed those designs. We had some comments. We went back to AECom, and they redid the design and came up with what would be considered the finalized conceptual design for the pool replacement. And all of those designs the drawings were submitted in the letter that went out to the city council at the end of September. So you should have those.
That's item number 13, which we have in front of us here. Sorry, but.
So now the current scope of work, what we're looking at is selective demolition of the existing pool and construction of a new pool entrance, which would be a beach-style entrance for handicap accessibility. We'd still maintain the lane swimming, and we would still maintain the deep diving area. We're going to get rid of the kiddie pool and install a spray area within the fence limits to act as the kiddie pool area. The latest cost estimate that we received from AECom is $1.73 million for the work. And that's what's prompted the request for additional funding on the project. So we have $1.5 million that's been authorized. The design and professional fees, the contract that we have with AECom is for a little under $158,000 through construction. So it's design, bidding, and construction phase services. We're holding on to $15,000 for miscellaneous costs that might come up for bidding or other, unknown costs right now. We use some of that for material testing. But what that leaves us with is $1.3 million from that original $1.5 million appropriation for construction. The request is for an increase in $550,000 in bond funding. And what that would do is it would give us $1.88 million for construction. So the current estimate is $1.73 million. There'd be about an 8% contingency in that, within that 1.88. And at this point in time, we think that would be sufficient to reconstruct the pool. And it's not just the pool, it's also the mechanical systems, the drainage systems, new electrical, new fencing, security, the pool deck, which is the concrete area around the pool is deteriorated. That would be replaced as well in the project. There was, in the letter that I sent, there was some discussion about the park grant and the tennis court project. And, the park grant, what we're applying for is $400,000 as a grant on construction. And the tennis court project, that was just a commentary on where we are financially with that project, where we're essentially at the end of construction, except for the painting of the high school tennis courts. And there's $150,000 left in that budget that we do not expect to be expended. So I mentioned that in the letter. I'm not suggesting that we transfer work from the pool to the tennis court project. It was just a communication to City Council that there was $150,000 on the tennis court project that we will not use, that we will not need to bond for.
Gary, did you want to add anything?
No, I think Michael covered it very well. I can give you all the demographics you want for the pool users and the programs we ran there. I'm hoping, once a new pool is established, we've never charged user fees, but I think it's high time we charge a little. We charge for most of our programming. It wouldn't be enough to incur any of these costs, but it might be a little, it would be helpful to incur some of the staffing costs for the lifeguards. In the meantime, we've been having open swim programs held indoors at the high school, and it's worked out okay. The pool isn't big enough to accommodate summer swimmers, and we are there for limited hours. So, but at least it was an alternative to offer some swimming during the hot months.
Thank you. Councilor McGee?
Yes, with regards to the grant, the $400,000, we reapplied again. What are the hopefuls or pros, cons? We see a problem with it, or it's pretty much we're going to get it back if we have an update on it?
Oh, there's no guarantees. I think we're very hopeful. We explained what happened. They encourage us very much to reapply, but we still just don't know.
But we're anticipating that we'll get $400,000 grant for this project, a park grant.
And that'll help offset the 1.88 is what the assumption is.
Correct, yeah.
If not, we're just at the 1.88. How many other pools do we have in the city of Hoyoke?
There's 0 outdoor pools.
0.
Outdoor.
And if this one doesn't go back online, we'll have no pools whatsoever, 0.
Well, we can continue using the high school pool, the indoor high
No,
school
I'm just
pool.
saying outdoor pools for the kids.
Correct.
during
We
the
haven't
summer,
had one
0.
since we've closed.
Right, so we have no outdoor pools for our kids. How many spray pads do we have?
6.
6. So one thing you did mention, it's always been a concern for me, is the fencing and security. What do you mean by fencing? Is it just going to be another chain link fence that we see there, or is it going to be something different to make sure they don't cut it and sneak through again or climb over? What are we doing on that absolute security for it?
So currently it's an 8-foot tall chain link fence with improved lighting and security cameras.
And the security cameras get connected to the police department, or how do they work?
They could be connected to the police department.
Does-
The cameras that I'm familiar with are the cameras that we have at the fuel depot and community field, and also at the boat access center. I don't know if those also go to the police department. It's all within the city's IT realm. So the cameras feed to a computer, and I have access to those from my desktop. And if I have access, I'm pretty sure PD can also have access.
Are there any alternatives to that type of fencing? Simply because we know it's been cut in the past several times, we patch it up. After a while, we just gave up. I've personally called the police department, being up at the field watching an event and seeing the kids climb over it and then jump from whether it be a lifeguard's bench into the pool. I mean, it's a liability that has to be addressed better than a chain link fence. Is there any other alternatives that we can use to make sure the kids are safe?
I would never
Hard
recommend.
fences or?
I don't think so for what you're thinking, because I would never recommend fencing or a barrier where you couldn't see, have it.
No, I'm not saying anything that you
I know.
can't see. I'm thinking, is there any other ways that other communities have dealt with it? Maybe there's none. I'm not.
And
Some of it's the area. I think we need to keep the hillside clear of all that vegetation, because it's always been really easy for anybody to get in, cut the fence, lift the fence. And the police do come, they come all the time, but because of where it is, you can see the headlights, so they just jump in the bushes and stay there.
So is that part of the plan, is to rip out all that area, the
Keep it
grass,
Part of
trees,
my
whatever?
The sheriff's department used to
Resnick.
come, yeah.
Yeah, on Resnick Boulevard, DPW, we're going to have Roca do that within the next few weeks.
So this would put a pool back on usage for our youth who currently have, I know we have the high school, but in all
Yeah.
due respect, they have nothing.
No, it's not just youth, it's,
Well, and elderly.
in the last
and
10 years,
yeah.
it's really families who come.
Oh, no, I've had many families call me asking where to go, and then how do they have access to Chicopee? Well, should have access to Hoyoke. I wasn't happy about losing the grant. I hope we can get it back. This is now another cost to us because it wasn't done. I'm not pointing fingers. I mean, something happened, that it is what it is, but I want to get the pool back online for families and our youth. Some have come to that microphone and said, get rid of the bonding for the pool, then we'd have no pools for our kids. And that's not right. So for me, having seen what happened with the tennis courts, which is a phenomenal job watching those go from start to finish, I mean, I'm not happy about the increase, but it's something that's needed for this city, so I'll leave it at that.
Counselor Bartley.
Thank you. Just back to the tennis courts for a second, Mike, 150,000 left over, what does that mean? Does that mean that those are bond funds that were?
So my understanding with the bond funds is that the city council authorizes bonding to a certain limit. That sets up the project. And then we get in and for DPW projects, we design it and construct the work. And then whatever it is that the design and construction costs us is what's bonded for. So I think with the tennis court project, I think it was it 1.25 million was the bond for the tennis courts. So we had the design and now construction, and I don't expect any additional change orders to come in from construction at this point in time where we are, and our total cost for design and construction is $1.1 million.
So what happens to 150,000 is my question.
The city does not bond for it.
Okay, so that just reduces our debt obligation.
Correct.
Okay. And then would you, before I get to my main question, would you just clarify what you said about Roca? What is Roca doing relative to this project?
And so the DPW has a contract with ROCA for miscellaneous services. They help us cleaning out alleys, doing brush removal, which is what they're going to be doing along Resnick Boulevard on the slope going up to Pouliot Pool. They also help us with snow removal in the wintertime, leaf removal right now. They helped paint several of the offices in City Hall. They boarded up a building on Owens Place before our the building maintenance and demolition supervisor position really kicked in. We use them at DPW as additional labor above and beyond what we have.
Okay, so so ROCA is a local chapter of the national organization? I mean, they're a national organization, aren't they? ROCA?
No, I think they're just in Massachusetts.
Okay, they're a statewide organization?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, and all right, this is the second time we're hearing ROCA tonight, so I guess I just gotta, yeah, they're on High Street. I thought they were.
They also have offices in Springfield and out towards Boston.
Okay, just regarding this amount.
So one more point about ROCA.
Please.
They really have no affiliation with the Pouliot Pool project. We're just using them as labor to clear that embankment of brush and debris. So there's, their contract has nothing to do with this Pouliot Pool project.
Yeah, all that embankment, isn't that Commonwealth property?
It could be.
Oh, how about it is?
It is,
How about it is Commonwealth property?
it is.
So there's no doubt in my mind it's Commonwealth property. So how's that work? We're subcontracting, the municipality subcontracting to a vendor, working on Commonwealth property to clear their mess. Does that work? I mean, we can legally do that?
It's not really a mess. We've done it for,
Well, okay, but just put that aside.
Yeah.
To me, it's unattractive.
it is their property. For years and years, the sheriff's department would come twice during the summer season and just clear it. We probably create more of a mess by clearing it. It's unsightly when it's not there. Now it's just a green hillside. Legally, I don't know that we've ever asked for the pool, but it's been done. It is state property. City
Right,
property is
so
only
we
within the
have
gates of
a
the
state
pool.
representative and we have a state senator for the city of Holyoke. And it's their job to advocate on our behalf to the Commonwealth. I can't imagine why we wouldn't contact them and ask them to advocate on our behalf, and we can have ROCA dispersed elsewhere, wherever a ROCA needs to go. I mean, I just think that's pretty straightforward logic. Regarding the amount, are we applying for community preservation funds for this project?
Not at this time.
Why wouldn't we do that?
I think there's
Instead of bonding for all this money, why don't we just apply for community preservation funds? This is open space, recreation, at least part of it, and I don't really like rounding up, because that's what we see, and I respect you, Mike, I do, but we're anticipating change orders. Well, we have a massive change order if compared to what the original contract was. The change order now is 1.73 compared to the 1.5. So there's that change order. That's amazing. I'm using that term loosely, but that's an increase in costs. So why wouldn't we apply for community preservation funds and try to lessen our bond obligation?
Well, we certainly could. And there will be another round of CPA before this project is complete.
And I do believe before this request came in for more funds, there is a bit of a strategic plan with the parks and the DPW for applying for those community preservation funds? Because I know we have a plan for the Parks Department next year as part of a renovation, hopefully for Springdale.
Terry, you're always thinking ahead, and that's awesome. And we were gonna do something on Mare Field too, I think we were thinking about that at some point
Yes.
down the road. But
And as far as DPW with CPA, we had 2 applications. One was for the stained glass windows upstairs, and the other was for some historic lighting over at the annex. So those aren't this pool, but there are other projects that there is a need to get done in the city.
And on top of that, the CP, Community Preservation, allows some funds to be carried over for a few years for larger projects, such as a pool. I don't know why we would have to, and this is a body that would vote on that. So I would think that you've got 6 councilors here now, probably warm to the idea of, we're the ones that are going to vote on it. Let me put the question another way. Could you, with that in mind, all that we said about community preservation, that this body votes on it, would you be willing to ask this committee to consider a lesser amount of an increase to the bond? Because you've already said to us, well, you've front-loaded it, so to add in a contingency, it sounded like about $150,000. Now I suggested the community preservation, and maybe that's another $150,000. So why? And on top of that, we know there's going to be a controversy coming relative to the middle schools. I mean, some of us don't like the debt exclusion option, and some of us think that there might be a better way, i.e. bonding. Meanwhile, we bonded for everything else under the sun, but to me, that's preferable than having a major tax hit that's probably not going to be a winner at the polls. So why can't we try to lessen our debt obligation, thinking that we've got CPA, Community Preservation Act money down the road?
Yeah, I suppose we could do that. It's just that the CPA money down the road isn't, I want to say guaranteed, but we don't have that money right here and right now, and what we're asking for is enough money to continue the project and finish it.
Yeah, how long's, what's in the
I
project
can
scope?
tell you,
Oh, I'm sorry, just one more question, Terry, just hold your
Okay.
thought, don't forget your thought. Just, from start to finish, the project duration will be what?
If we continue forward, we can begin construction in June of this year, and we'll be finished with construction in June. I take that back, not June of this year, but June of 2019, and we'll be finished in June of 2020.
Okay, so you're crossing over at least 2 fiscal years, maybe 3 fiscal years, when it's assuming that everything goes on, that doesn't go on time. I guess there's no guarantees on anything, Mike, but I would. Sorry, that's all I have. Terry, sorry about that.
I can tell you right now that the project right now is pretty bare bones. It's to have an operational pool and better security and fencing in the deck. We still have locker rooms that'll get some work, but it's as scaled down as it can be to be successful. The community preservation, yeah, I think both departments have long-range plans, and who knows, Counselor, we might be back here in a few months applying for the next round. It wasn't in our sights this time around. I think both departments were happy to support the stained glass windows project.
Yep, thank you.
I'll bounce over Counselor Sullivan for a second, Mike, for Counselor McGee to answer part of that question.
Correct me if I'm wrong, remember when we did the $400,000 grant, we had to fully fund it in order to then be able to accept the grant. I remember that as a requirement.
It is.
So to answer Councilor Bartley is you'd have to approve the excess to fully fund it to then get the 400 supposedly, I mean, once again, that's now up in the air.
Right.
To then have that backed out, then you could go to the CPA and ask for support, and if they give you any money, that would further diminish the debt obligation. I did look to our very good colleague who serves multiple hats, Councilor Sullivan. He's on that committee, and he said next year funding would be coming out. You make a great point, Councilor Bartley. I'll beg him. Hopefully we can get money for it to help offset the, but I do remember specifically that grant had that
Oh,
catch to
it
it.
still does.
Let's see. Well,
And to follow up on that, that's the same thing that happened with the Valley Arena Park project, which is out to bid right now. It was a $200,000 construction project, and the city requested bonding for the $200,000, knowing that we had a park grant for $200,000 to back it up. So we'll do the construction, we'll get reimbursed from the park grant, and there won't be any need for bonding whatsoever. But the authorization to spend was what was needed in order to secure the funding.
Councilor Sullivan.
Okay, thanks. On top of the CPA, I think you could qualify also for CDBG money
Yes.
as well. And given this time frame, you might be able to qualify for 2 rounds of CDBG money also. Right now is the enrollment application submission time. If we could get those in, I think before in November or December, you'd qualify for 2 rounds. Now, if I add this up correctly and know the kind of funds that are available, if you got $200,000 from CPA, $200,000 from CDBG on the first round, another 200. We're talking 600,000 on top, and plus the 400,000 from the state. We're going from a $1.7 million project to a $700,000 project. So I highly encourage you to get that stuff going as soon as possible. I have seen a lot of stuff go. The mayor has final approval on the CDBG money, so we, regardless of what we do, it's his decision ultimately in the end. But we ought to get out there and start leaning on that. The 1.73 million. How much of that, Mike, was demolition cost?
Site prep and demolition. So that does include mobilization and general conditions, but the estimate was $363,000. There was one big number was remove and demolish the pool deck of $100,000, and then there's a bunch of other remove and demolish items within the site prep and demolition. But I would say it's approximately $200,000 in demolition.
You lost me a little. At first I heard 363 and then
Yeah, so 363 was the subtotal for site prep and demolition.
Okay, so that's site prep as well.
But included in that is about 175 for mobilization, general conditions, and supervision. So those are associated with the entire project, not just demolition.
Right.
So if we take the 363 and subtract that, we're at about $200,000 for demolition work.
Okay, and of that, 100,000 is just the pad removal?
The pool deck.
Pool deck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there an opportunity here to use our city demolition crew on this and save $100,000?
So we did a lot of value engineering with this project. We were operating where we had a $1.3 million construction budget, and the first conceptual designs came in, and they were around $1.4 to $1.6 million. And then they got into it a little bit more. But we were pushing back on the designer to scale down the costs. And we were talking about doing selective demolition with in-house. And it's still something we can do. Nothing's finalized right now, but if we were to put everything out to bid and leave it to a contractor to do, that's where we got the 1.73.
All right, so there's a chance for another savings on top on these costs by taking some in-house, in addition to what we could bring in other funding like CPA and CDBG.
Correct, yeah. And even, there's some other demolition costs in the mechanical with the filters. And that's just filters and piping. And I know we can break that stuff down and take it out.
Yep. And I'd also, just, as note here, a couple of the guys that are on the new demolition team did the complete removal of an Olympic-sized swimming pool over at the Sisters of Providence a couple of years ago. Not just the pad removal, but the entire pool.
Okay.
So they've got some experience here in-house also. Just as a, how much do we pay Ty and Bond to tell us we had cracks and spurls?
Nothing.
Nothing. That's a good figure.
That is.
All right. All right, thank you.
Councilor Dodd.
Yeah, I'll just be brief, and I echo the remarks of my colleague, Mr. President, about the pool that's been 4 years without a pool already. And I think it's important that we have an outdoor pool for our kids and our adults. And even with this going through, it's going to take another couple of years, 2020. And Councilman McGiverin mentioned about the pool, the state pool, Shamor. I remember going up there as a kid, going up there by Scott's Tower and, 10 or 12 years old and paying 25 cents to get in there. You stated about paying some funding, I think is important, low cost, but to get
I do
people in
too.
there.
Yeah.
Just to help pay for the staff and, whatever incidentals for the pool. But I think it's important, and Councilor Sullivan stated about any way we can look to try to bring our costs down through any kind of fund, CPA or CDBG funds I think is important, to try to keep, because we heard tonight from our auditor how, things don't look too good in the future of our budget, our finances. So any way we can try to save some money, but still provide something for our community and our youth, especially in a community in Holyoke where a lot of people could utilize an outdoor pool, I think is important. So I'm very much in favor of this.
When Councilor Tomlin was swimming at Shamor Pool, along with myself, there also were 4 inner-city pools. Ward 4, Jackson Parkway, down in South Holyoke, were all part of the scheme, and of course, the high school was open on certain days. And Pouliot Pool, the reason it's on state property is the state came to us and said, a commitment was made with Shamora. They didn't want to operate Shamora no more. They wanted to fill it in, but they opened up Pouliot Pool. We eventually opened up the pool over in Pulaski, by Pulaski Park, which ran into its own problems. And they convinced us to take over Pouliot Pool with a sweet deal, if we ran it. They wanted us to take over the ice skating rink too. You gonna move for that, Mike?
Maybe.
But we need a pool, is the bottom line, for our kids and for our families. And it's sad that, once again, the state reneges on promises. Councilor Bartley.
Just on the numbers, I just want to, so we authorized 1.5 million, Mike?
Yes.
Okay. And now you're asking for $550,000. So that would put it at 2.05 million?
Correct.
And I thought I heard you say that with the contingency that you're weighing in, you're looking at a worst-case scenario is 1.88 million. So unless I missed something, I'm wondering why we're authorizing for in excess of $1.88 million. I heard you say 1.73 million plus another contingency on top of that. So I had it to 1.88, but what did I miss?
So 1.73 is the construction estimate.
Yeah.
0.15 is the construction contingency.
Yeah.
.15 is the design, bidding, and construction phase services. And then a token 15,000.
Okay, I missed the second .15 for the design, I guess. I thought that was somehow already included. I didn't hear you say that. So that's how you came up with the 550.
And a generous 8% contingency.
Well, whatever it is, I mean, on top of the other contingency from not getting it done by FY18.
And, the 8% construction contingency, we are in preliminary design, but if you look at the cost estimate that they provided, it was detailed for the stage that we're at. So I think that that level of contingency, we should be good.
Thank you.
Anything else? Motion made, can we do two things? On item number 12 is the communication from Mike with the plans. I asked that we just lay that on the table. It's a copy for the committee jacket, and we'll keep that active until this project is done. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And on item 13, the motion is to adopt and recommend the additional funding to the full city council, with the caveat, Mike, if you could do this, or if you can't, I'll do it somehow, that we get the correct language through,
Definitely.
maybe if you're from, you know what I'm talking about, it came from, I
Yeah.
don't know why it came from Crystal, but because of the parks, it's the parks project,
Oh, that-
it's different language than that was used for, that the mayor signed off. We need the mayor to sign off on the correct language with the numbers, and we'll receive that next Wednesday as we're making the report.
12, that would be 12 though, right? Not
Joe,
13.
David?
So I just want to have, we want to include that little language we always put on.
And
Yeah.
please, the Bartley
Yeah,
amendment.
yeah.
Because Rory didn't put the
course.
Bartley amendment on this language.
He did
And
not?
He did not, and I noticed it right away. Well, the story is this happened real quick at our last city council meeting. All of a sudden, people were asking me, when are we gonna vote on the pulley-out pool? And I said, we don't have anything in front of us but a nice package that tells us what's going on, but we need the mayor, as I said earlier, the auditor, the mayor, department heads, to put the actual, with the correct language in front of us. So he got what he thought was the correct language. We received it, put it in committee to go with this package, and here we are tonight. Now we just have to replace the language. I think we have the discussion completed. Anything else? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Motion adjourned?
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned.